Welcome to Theories and Thoughts podcast with your hostess Anya Ann.
Fancy.
Tonight we'll be talking to Dr. Laquita about love, the military, and her new relationship anthology. So
Stay tuned, y'all. All right.
welcome back, you guys. Um, so this is our second to last episode. Wow, this year has gone by, especially December. Anyway, how was your weekend, Fancy?
It was good. Just a lot of rest. I need to get out of the house, but it seems like I'm growing to be attached to it again. But I had some I don't know, since since I had been in school, I really had not had a chance to really like think about a lot of things. I was more so just like responding to stuff, or I guess you say reacting and not totally responding because there was a lot going on. And I have just been kind of trying to decide what I'm gonna do next. If because at first I feel a lot of anxiety about that. Like, okay, now that you have a degree, like, are you planning to use it? I actually did apply to some jobs. I got my first denial letters and emails in I don't know how many years. But I was just like, you know what? Okay, then if God wants you to have a job, you will be, you'll find one. But if not, then I'm just gonna keep on doing what I've been doing. But there are some things that I like to change. Um, I did take the time over the weekend to do upload CEO Chatter live as a podcast within the Apple community and just like some other podcasting platforms because I think that there's some opportunity there. Just kind of looking at how the interviews have been going with that segment as well. So that's really like what I worked on and just sit at home. But how was your weekend? I saw it looked like you went somewhere, huh?
Yeah, this weekend I went. Hell, what did I do? I know. Oh, Friday I was supposed to go to the Christmas party was canceled. Um, I have a friend here, Dominique. She's actually from Baton Rouge. She has a Christmas party every year. I got out of the house. I wasn't feeling all that great, but I just was like, okay, let me get. I've realized that I don't eat enough. My dietitian told me I don't eat enough, and I need to start eating more consistent. And because of that, I feel sick a lot of times. And Saturday was one of them days, but I got out of the house and went hung out for just a little bit. And Sunday I hadn't hung out with that group of girls in a long time. And it felt good to be out. We went to Lava Cantina. It was really cool. They always have a nice little band and stuff. And one of my girlfriends, she had just lost her father right before the anniversary of my dad's passing. Last Tuesday was actually the anniversary of my father's passing. I realized that the day of my dad's funeral, we was on the podcast. His anniversary was on the podcast. Right after he died, we was on the podcast. I was on the podcast. I was thinking about that last week. I was like, it's like I just keep going. I just keep moving, even though in spite of. But I got to hang out with her and kind of get her mind off of that, I guess. And yeah, that's how my weekend went. It was pretty cool.
Well, I didn't realize that about your dad, so I'm sorry. I know that that was probably a challenging time for you, and also it just makes me think, but at least, now. I'm not gonna say you exactly know how to comfort someone, but you know what she may have been going through. So that's just kind of like, how they oftentimes say that, our trials and testimonies aren't for us, they're for someone else, and it just makes me think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know how to I never when I know when my father passed, I didn't want to talk to too many people, just the people I deal with every day for the most part. But yeah, I just that's how I handle things. Some people want people to talk to them. I'm like, I'm good. I remember just telling her, Anitra, when my dad died last year, I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm good. And she was like, "You want me to take your phone? You want me to just tell her to call me?" I'm like, whatever. But I just remember like even the day of the funeral, we was on because the funeral was on a Tuesday, and I just remember being in my grandmother's house, and at my grandmother's house, and my grandmother passed in July. Being at my grandmother's house and being on the podcast on that day after I had just buried my dad, even after my grandmother passed, I was here. It just put things in perspective that it's
Yeah.
just me thinking about stuff. So, but yeah.
Well,
Um,
Rona, see, she said, "Hey, ladies."
hey, Sharon. So you had anything else to say about the weekend?
No.
Um, a lot of people don't hire in the fourth quarter, and they start hiring in the first quarter of the year.
Um, Look, I don't care. I'm just wondering how I would even act in an interview with somebody, like, because just knowing me and how I am. I mean, I'm interested, but I'm just like, what can you offer me at this point? I'm not, before I was always so like, what do I have to offer them? And I'm just not in that mood, and, I'm not in that mode anymore. So,
And that's good because you have your own empire that you've built. And like you said, you're moving towards some other things and maybe adding some other things. You getting a degree may not be you going into the workforce, but you creating more of a workforce, if that
yeah,
makes sense. Um, or you can go work for somebody and get behind the scenes to build on your workforce, if that makes sense. Like just working for them and seeing how they lay out things and kind of give you a different perspective on things. And definitely, if I was to, I've been at the bank 14 and a half years. If I was to go somewhere, it would definitely be like, what can you do for me? Like, what we doing?
yeah.
Okay, so this caught my attention. This week we witnessed um I don't want to say a fall of an empire, but the curtain was kind of cut on something that we thought was all together. Well, I let me speak for myself. Um, on a family that was thought to be solid. When also sorry, rest in peace, Twitch DJ Twitch. So leading from that, Master P made a post about Twitch, and Romeo followed it with kind of a very vague post. I tell people all the time, I don't have time for subs. Like I am not the sub girl. I'm not if I post something and you think it's about you, I really wasn't thinking about you when I was posting it. Like I'm not that girl. I'm not that girl to be like, oh, you made me mad. Let me go post something about it, but not tag you or tell you about it. Like I'm not her. But that's basically what Rome did. um he took it to the internet and basically talked about his father dealing with his own demons and um how he put something up about Twitch. So it started out about mental health, and then it gradually, well, not gradually, because it felt like it was very, it hit right after that. It started being more about money. And at first, I feel like Romeo was acting like it was about mental health, but then he went into it's about, after people was like this, let's not do that here, and then it became a little bit more about money. A lot of people at first was saying that Romeo was ungrateful, that Romeo, just different things. P came back and he was just like, look, I didn't want to do that. This is not where I do this. Um, I don't want to do this here, but since we are, I apologize to my son. Um, what's your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, I might have missed some stuff within throughout, but I was reading up on it, and I watched the video that Master P did. And initially, like when I first saw the post, just as people were posting talking about what Romeo said, I was shocked. And I remember telling somebody like, because I thought they was like this, you always see them together and everything, and that was his. Basically, I thought he was just like following in Master P's footsteps. So to see that, it was shocking to me as well. But I kind of like, as I was looking at the people's comments, and they was like, oh, you can hear the pain in his voice and things like that, about Master P. I I kind of heard it, I don't really, it's a family matter, but I do. One thing that he said is that we raise our children and we shield them from so much that like they don't know how to deal with struggles and hardships, like they don't know what that's like when they actually do occur, because they've been so used to us always coming in saving the day, basically, just to paraphrase or whatever. And I could totally relate to that. And I just look at it even with my 18-year-old that's in college, like, her coming home now every week, as she makes this pretty much her little market to pick up washing powder or whatever the case may be, or little things. And it was just like, her even saying today, like, man, I didn't know washing powder cost that much money. And I was like, okay, now you've been seeing. And so it's, I understand where he's coming from, but I do think, as like from Romeo's perspective, and just kind of seeing that initially, like you said, you thought it was about mental health, because that's what I thought it was about before, later on seeing all this stuff about the money after the fact. But I would feel some kind of way. I think, if I, had lost a sibling and I felt like my parents didn't speak out enough or show enough concern or understand their situation, and then all of a sudden you have this empathy for this other person, and it's like just because they're a celebrity that you feel obligated to say something. Yeah, I would feel some kind of way about that too. But if it is all about money, um, I'm not gonna say he needs to grow up. I just kind of think we really don't. I don't. Of course, we never know all of the situation, but that's kind of where I'm at with things. I don't really have a lot to say on it, because I don't know. I kind of feel like I might be missing something. But what do you think?
Like I said, I'm one that's like, I'm not, if I'm not putting up subs, and he put up a sub, like, go directly to your father. If you had a problem with his post, that's how I look at it. And even Pete said that in his last night. He said everybody's like, why didn't you call your son? I
Yeah.
called my son, he ain't answering. That's an issue. That's number one for me. You know, because at first I was like, you know what? Maybe he's putting it out on social media, because he said my dad is for the fame and his image. So I was like, well, he's putting it out here on social media, because if he come after his image, he has to respond. But if I just call him behind the scenes, he don't have to. He could give me some sugar coat, he can cover it up or whatever. Um Honestly, I feel like P put Rome on a lot of things, like
Mhm.
basketball, acting, music. You say y'all was living a paycheck, yeah, we month to month, but you didn't look like it. And a lot of people, you can make it, you know. You can make it not look like what it really is. Don't get me wrong. But I just was like, he's put you in industries and areas. So if he wasn't giving you the money that you desired, he put you in touch with people. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling very well. But he put you in place. He
He
put you
positioned him.
positioned you. He positioned you if he wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And I seen one post he made, and he was saying that the he was saying that he didn't make no money off of rap snacks. You was old enough for snacks. So look at that contract and look over it. At some point when you don't see nothing coming to your name, that's when you said 15 years. Rome is what, 30? Almost 30?
I think they say he like 33.
If he 33, he was old enough to look over a contract and sit in on that. At least if he let 5 years go by, and at 20 he was like, I that's when you'd be like, I want to be a part of this. I remember when I bought my truck that I have right now, I told Chloe, sit right here. You about to learn how to how we gonna do this, because I paid cash for it. And I was like, sit right here, look at this, read this. After I read this, what that say? You know, she even caught something that I didn't catch. She caught that it only had two owners, that my truck only had two owners, so I'm the third owner. And it was with a company for like 15 years. I didn't catch that. She caught that though, but I knew that it didn't have many owners, you know. I seen what I needed to see. That's when you do that. He was old enough. So you just let your dad just continue when you said that if you live in rent to rent and you don't have much, why don't you look at the contracts?
Yeah.
You could have got off your dad's record label. I'm sure a lot of people. Rome wasn't bad. Romeo wasn't a bad rapper. He could have been on anybody else's. He could have been on So Def with Bow Wow. Well, I don't know, but
Well, I see Sharona said you just shouldn't check your parents on the internet, especially if your parents have been funding you your whole life. Yeah, and
that's.
everybody and everybody know that, you know. So
And then he was like, "My mom was right all along." Like, you've spoken out against your mom, so is your mom right or your dad right? Because you say your mom was on drugs. Make it make sense.
well, it's 7:20. Do you want to go ahead on into our commercial, or were you trying to still do the other story?
You can go into the commercial.
Okay. Well, we'll be back in just a minute, y'all, with our guest, Dr. Laquita Monley. Let me make sure I say everything here. Okay.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Dr. Laquita, you're on. I was about to say you're on mute.
Is that better now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If you're over. Let me
Oh, what I'm doing. There I go.
Yeah.
right. Looks good.
Moving too
Welcome.
much. How are you ladies?
We're good. How you doing? Well, I'm good, Francis. I was like, we're good. Welcome to Theories and Thoughts podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Laquita Monley, and I am a very proud retired Army spouse, mother of 5 adult children, grandmother of 5 amazing little people. And the Lord has really blessed me in having an amazing family, as well as a platform as a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the independently certified with the John Maxwell team. So that's kind of just a little bit about who I am and some of what I do.
Okay. So tonight we're supposed to be talking about your upcoming anthology, commissioned by Covenant. And
Yes.
first, I guess we could go right into like, at what point did you decide, hey, I want to do this anthology? Kind of like, what was your thought process behind things?
Nice question. So, matter of fact, I was just talking to somebody earlier today about that. I've been wanting to do something like this for about 5 years. It's just like the logistics of how to get it done. I wasn't sure about, and when I would, look into it, I would meet particular roadblocks. So, what it really came to was, yes, the vision is mine. This is what God has given me to do. It just wasn't the right time and the right season. So, about 6 months ago, the Lord did fill in the rest of those dots, if you will. I was able to connect with some other amazing ladies as well as yourself, and put together the back end part of making sure that this anthology happens, because what it is really is an extension of our ministry, of what me and my husband have been doing since about 2005. We've been encouraging and helping to build other military families through ministry. And so, with this particular anthology, we're looking at it as an extension of that, where military families, especially African American military families, get an opportunity to share their story, the trials that we go through, the successes that we have, the wins that we have, um, and how the Lord has not only caused us to be able to go through the military, but thrive through our experience as military families.
Okay. What branch?
My husband was Army. He
Army.
was active duty Army for 24 plus years.
Oh wow. Salute to him. Thank him for his service and thank you for your service. I've
Thank
learned
you. Thank you.
the wife for their service as well. My brother is retired. That's why I asked. Army.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank him for his service. And I know even as extended family, that's not an easy position to be in.
Right. Right.
Yes, it is not an easy position to
Responders.
be in.
But
Yeah.
he's like he'll do it again. He at one point he was in Australia and his daughter learned soccer. She got a soccer scholarship. So he's like, okay, I'll do it again. And
Yes.
thanks for that.
Yes.
What is so you talked about your ministry. How did you decide? Well, when did God, let me say it like that, because I'm a Christian as well, and I understand how God drops things into your spirit and then you
Yeah.
start moving on it. When did God drop it into your spirit and when did you start moving on it?
The Lord originally dropped it in my spirit when we first returned back stateside in 2017, um, to work on this project. And so I actually started working on my portion of the project, writing and outlining and looking and researching, how do I do this? What is this about? How do I get this done? And exactly, the mission of the project, the mission and the vision, the more that I began to do my part, the clearer that became. And so after my participation in my first anthology, that really put some bones to the project. Like, okay, here, this is what needs to be done. This is my target audience, because people produce anthologies all the time. They produce books all the time. But if you don't have a strategy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to do at that point, right? And so I knew that I needed to have a strategy in order for me to reach the people that God wanted me to reach. And so that's why it's been, for me, a 5-year journey in getting this done, or beginning to put the legs on it to get it done.
Okay.
So was there ever like a point where you were just kind of like, okay, because I know for me, just and I'm working on it. But I'm one of those type of people, when I get an idea, I'm instantly ready to run. You know, did you ever have that moment where you was just like, okay, this is too much time? You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna take me longer. I don't want to. I'm not certain if I want to do this anymore. You know, did you ever have any of those moments along the way?
They don't never stop. Like, yes, yes, because when God gives you a vision to do something, even when He shows you the path, that doesn't mean the process is going to be easy. You can
Right.
see the vision clearly. Like, I can see the beginning, I can see the end. It's that middle part that gets you caught up.
Right.
And even when, yeah, like I was sharing with a sister today, and her name is Kimberly. I was sharing with Kimberly today, even with that, just full transparency, it was probably about 6 months ago that I originally spoke to Fancy about the project, and I already had the necessary pieces. Well, one of the biggest hindrance to getting things done was me, was my reservations. Like, I get super excited. I want things done and I want them done now. I'm not necessarily the person that's like an operations specialist. So if I hit a hiccup or a roadblock, that annoys me. It annoys me. It can even cause me to have to process through fear and different things like that. So yes, along the journey, even though the Lord put the right pieces in place, it was up to me to get the job done, to make these things work together. And so yeah, for sure, I get in the way a lot.
Right. That's why I asked you what God dropped it in your spirit when you started to move on it, because a lot of times we take a little time. And then, just as David, God can say this is what it's going to be, and it'll take all these years for it to come to fruition
Mhm.
at
And,
time.
and that's a good question. That was really a great question, because just because God gives you something today, He gives you a vision today, He gives you a word today, does not necessarily mean that it's going to happen today, tomorrow, next week, next year. We have to pray these things out, see them through, um, to make sure that we are doing it in the right time and in the right season.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, Fancy, you had something?
No, you can go ahead.
So as you were moving, you say you started working on your piece. So as you were moving on your piece, what are the things again that you started to do that also became full circle with your ministry?
So the biggest thing that I started to do was I started to write. Um, I began to write my story, what I wanted to include in the anthology, and also writing out the vision. Like I said, who are the people that I want to reach? Who are the people that I believe, in my spirit, that God is connecting me with in this project as co-authors, and looking at it from a business perspective, who was going to be great in the team for marketing, who's going to be great in the team for in publishing, and all of these different things, who's going to be great with getting it out on social media. Am I going to do this virtually? Am I going to do this in person? These are all things that you have to build out on the back end of the project, because what people see on advertisement, that's just the glitter and the gloss, but all of the
Right.
hard pieces behind the scenes, that's the bits that you need to work on. And because God has given us to do something, so we're going to do it in excellence. So I don't want to just throw it out there and say, hey, God gave me this word and this is what's going to happen, people, come on and sign up. And like,
Right.
okay, then what? So it's a process. And because it was very new to me, I wanted to make sure that I took my time and sat with more than one or two people in order to learn how to make this happen.
Okay. You said you were a coach. I
I
did.
am.
So
I am.
did you start your coaching in 2017 or prior, or while you were doing this process of making this creating this anthology?
So I started my coaching actually in 2020. Um,
Okay.
and that honestly was just it, that the coaching and the speaking actually for this particular project don't go hand in hand. Now the
Oh,
skill
okay.
set became handy. The
Okay.
skill set definitely was handy in this process, but one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Okay. I thought that all because you said it goes with your ministry, so that's why I thought.
Yeah. So
Fancy.
like
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
coaching in terms of of ministry, when we look at like ministering to someone and encouraging someone, that's definitely a gift. It's definitely a skill set. And going through a coaching certification in order to sharpen those skills will definitely increase the success rate of the minister when it comes to, okay, how am I effectively impacting the people that God has called me to reach? If someone is coming to me for wise counsel, I won't say a counselor because I'm not a licensed clinician at all. If someone comes to me in confidence and they need ministry, then I need to know how to do more than quote Genesis to Revelations to them. Amen. But
Right.
I need I need to be able to, give them wisdom and
Right.
know when to talk and when to listen. Amen. So
Amen. I
yeah.
I said that just the other day. I said sometimes some things you just can't put scripture on. You have to just give them Jesus. Like you have to talk. Yeah.
Yes, he's Jesus was very practical, right? Like
Right.
that's how we have the parables. When he's talking to the crowd, he's talking to people, he would give it to them in a way that they could process and
Exactly.
understand and relate it back to the scripture. So if I'm quoting a scripture to you and you don't even know who Jesus is, I have to make it applicable. I have
Exactly.
to present it to you in a way that you understand. And even if you do, if I'm talking, because this book is about military marriage, if my
Mhm.
husband and I we're sitting and we're talking to a family that has been devastated, whether it's been devastated through infidelity, maybe it's been devastated because the service member has been injured, amen. And whether that's a physical injury or they're suffering from PTSD, it's so many things that as military families that we go through. If those people are entrusting us, then we need to make sure that we're properly equipped to be able to assist them, number one. Number two, making sure that we're properly equipped to identify our ability to assist them. Can we assist them? Is
Right.
this something that we need to outsource to a professional? And so it would be a disservice if we didn't. And we are going to talk about that in the book and as well as in the podcast.
Okay.
And so now because just the way I thought it how it was, your ministry is actually something that you do with your husband. Your coaching is separate, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Because I was gonna say, I was gonna ask, is your husband gonna write anything for the book as well?
So he will like in Redefining Success, he wrote the forward for the book. And in this book, he's definitely going to talk about, he'll write the forward in it again, because the book is more centered towards the military spouse's experience and not the service member's experience. But he and I are working on a book project, um, and it's about marriage. And so he'll definitely have a lot of input in there. I don't want to do a marriage book where it seems like it's one sided. Amen.
Definitely.
So, yes, giving my insights and my experiences and the things that the Lord has shown me and helped us go grow through in our 30 years of relationship. I'm definitely going to be able to share that from a woman's perspective, but likewise, he will also share some things from a man's perspective, because just like I was a teenage mom, he was a teenage dad. I wasn't the only parent in that situation. We
Right.
had to learn how to walk that walk together.
So what are some things that we can look forward to in the anthology? Like what type of conversation, shall I say, that we can look forward to? And is this something that even if I don't have a military spouse that I would want to pick up and read?
Definitely, definitely. So, like your brother is in the military,
He's
or
retired.
retired from the military.
Mhm.
What people can look forward to in this anthology is the stories that are shared from military family members, and it will give our civilian families a better idea of what we live, what we've gone through, and from our perspective. Now, in from the standpoint of marriage, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're in the military or not in the military, definitely will be a blessing, because yes, being married in the military and as a military family, we do experience things that civilians don't experience. You know, if you're, no matter what you do in a civilian capacity, unless you are a first responder,
Right.
unless your family is a first responder family, um, you really can't expect, you know, the cyber technician to go off to war and possibly never come back, or to be gone for 6 months and I can't come see you, or to be gone for 18 months and maybe in those 18 months I saw you for about 25 days. You know, that's not the experience of the average family. So you'll see a lot of that in the book. And so yes, I believe that it will be a book that definitely will be a blessing to anyone who picks it up, because our country does a fairly decent job of honoring the military, but what they don't do, and I don't believe that as politicians they have the ability to do it, because most of them never served.
Right.
They don't have that ability to clearly share the story of what it is like in everyday life of the military. And I believe too that when people read this book, a lot of the things, whether you are on the left or on the right politically, when you read this book and the stories that are shared from these families, it will help to tear down some of those lies that we've been told from the right and the left of what it actually takes to serve and protect this nation.
Oh, that was deep. I was I wasn't expecting that. I'm curious though, because I know we keep talking about the book, but
Yeah,
like, what are some the experiences that you can share? You know, like that you've had, or what was the biggest adjustment for you? Because your husband went into the military shortly after you all graduated from high school, right?
correct. Yep. Yeah. So I
So
mean,
like, how
it,
was that an adjustment for you? I don't know if you had any other military family members prior to that, but you know, what was that
I
like for
did.
you?
I did. So I have an uncle that served 20 plus years in the Air Force and retired. I have another uncle, both on my dad's side and on my mom's side. I had an uncle that joined the Army. And I also had another uncle that did 20 plus years in the Army. So between Army and Air Force, and my uncles from my mom and my dad's side, they served. But I grew up right there in Macomb. The
Yeah.
farthest I ever went as a kid was to a Sunday school convention to Champaign, Illinois. So that whole thing was an experience, you know, being left. He joined the reserves while I was pregnant. Right after we found out I was pregnant, I joined the reserves. He joined the reserves. And then I graduated in May. By the 4th of July weekend, we were eating barbecue in Summit and then rolling out because he had to be back to work on Tuesday. And I was in Fort Hood, Texas, you know, in July of 1996. And that
Wow.
was very, very different, you know, having grown up around nothing but family. And I'm 500 plus miles away from home in this multicultural environment. That shook me. I was not ready. I was not ready. Now, the more that we did move, the easier it became. And I say easier, it's never easy. The more that
Right.
we moved, the easier it became. And I had to learn to adapt the mindset. I had to learn to adapt the mindset, to learn how to make the lemonade out of the lemons. Because
Right.
if I didn't, there was enough negativity to go around to where I would completely be miserable all the time. And since I'm the heartbeat of my home, if I'm miserable, then the children are miserable, then the husband is miserable. Everybody miserable because mama's miserable. I don't like being miserable and I can't change it. As
Right.
long as he was serving in the United States Army, it wasn't our choice where we lived or when we moved. Well,
Hmm.
it was my choice. It was never Ben's choice. Like some families choose, the spouse goes everywhere and they have one place that they homestead and the spouse just comes back and regularly visits, or they go. That wasn't my testimony. I didn't want it to be, because then why am I married if we just do drop and eat? No,
Right.
none of that. So
Right.
we made those moves, and but it does impact our children as well. Like one of the stories that's going to be told prayerfully by one of the educators, that we met when we were stationed in Vilseck, Germany. During that time, that's when our government was doing a lot of shutting down when President Obama was in office. And every time you turn around, the government shutting down, the government shutting down. And people are complaining about defense spending. Oh, you think that, we're spending too much of the government's budget on the military. Well, what the average civilian doesn't know is that budget is much more than bullets and guns and weapons.
Right.
That was the salary for the teachers who were teaching our children. So when the government shut down, even though the teachers were willing to teach for free, they could not. So guess whose children were not in school?
Right.
That would impact our children. And so those are the stories that neither side wants you to know about regularly, because it will make everybody look bad. Because
Right.
all of these services that military families depend on, when we are outside of the country as well as inside of the country, that's included in that government spending. And neither Democrat nor Republican want to speak to that out loud, because they're all being shenanigans. And so, but those things impact military families. And we have some families that definitely those times negatively impacted them, whether we call it GS workers, whether one of the parents was a GS employee. Now that cut my income because I can't get paid if the government shut down. That affected my husband's income. He can't get paid if the government gets shut down. But we still got bills. We still have responsibilities. So there's going to be a lot of things that people just wouldn't think of that happens to military families and that we get to experience. We're going to reduce government spending, right? And I'm going to get off this bandwagon, but we're going to reduce government spending, but we're going to keep sending these troops to go serve and protect people abroad and here. Well, if you reduce it, that means I got to go from wearing the Jordans to, the Walmart specials. That's how they do with their equipment. They go from having the best to not so the best. And now I got to stand in front of this bullet for you. Make that make sense.
Right.
But our families are supposed to be okay with it.
And those are things that we don't, just as average, I guess, civilians don't really, think about. At least I must admit, I haven't thought about any of those things before, but I don't really have anyone that's close to me military. So I wouldn't just be privy to that type of information and, know that that's going on. But that's another reason why people should read the book, because, it'll educate them more.
And to be fair, as a lot of these things we don't talk about. We talk about it with each other. But to say that, I know like my sister-in-laws and my brother-in-law, they did not realize that my husband had been injured downrange a few times. And downrange means while he was at war in Iraq, Afghanistan, that he had been injured several times. And so as a result of those injuries, he has PTSD, and he had to have several surgeries and different things. They didn't realize that, because you don't process, you don't think about that. As the extended family, when you're calling and you're getting updates, you're asking the husband or the wife, because women serve. Women serve, and they're doing the same thing as the men.
Right.
You just want to make sure they're okay. And so as the spouse, we're juggling all of that stress. So the last thing I want to do is answer 1 million questions from you that I probably don't have the answer to, or perhaps I do have the answer to, but in giving you the answer, then I've got to explain what that answer means. So it's easier for me to say, oh, it's all right, it's good, than to say, well, June was involved in the IED about 3 or 4 days ago. I kind of just found out about the results of the IED because we had to wait till everybody was notified. And he's recovering. So he wasn't hurt bad enough to be shipped to Germany or to Walter Reed's, but he's recovering there, and he's gone back out to the fob. But, it took me 3 days to know whether he was alive or dead. I don't want to tell you that part. I'm still processing that part.
And then you have to explain what an IUD is.
What an IUD is, right? Like he was out on a convoy,
Right.
team, like, well, what's that, baby?
Right.
I talked to him 3 days ago, Mama. I talked to him 3 days ago. He was all right then. Yeah,
right.
Because we are processing. So we don't have the capacity, we don't have the bandwidth to try to help you process. And
Right.
after it's all over, then it's like, you know what? It's good. They don't even need to know. And
Right.
how they found out, we were actually ministering to someone and they were visiting. And my sister in law was like, "Did you just say June got blew up?" I did. When did that happen? Every time you went, like, yeah, that
Right.
happened. You do realize that they are throwing rockets at them the size of small Volkswagens. Like, that happened
Right.
every time.
I remember one of my girlfriends, her husband was in the Navy. And you speak of not talking, be going for 6 months and not, talking maybe 45 days. They don't even do that much. Like
Yeah.
it's hit or miss when they're on the
It's
boat.
yeah,
On the
exactly.
ship, it's like, I'm gonna talk to you when I talk to you.
Right.
Maybe you going for 6 months and just watching her go through that.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe 3 times she talked to us.
Yeah.
And because he's out at sea. And when they're out at sea, you can't know their location. It's just so
It's
much stuff.
exactly, depending on what they do. My husband's intelligence analyst. I could never know what he did.
Never.
So you were glued to the phone, like the phone was your friend. You bet not every number and it wasn't like you got caller ID and it said Ben's calling.
Right.
You're answering every crazy looking number, every no caller ID, and you're thirsty for that time. And people will be like, okay, well, when he talks to you, can you talk good? No, about 15 minutes. You got about 15
Right.
minutes
And
on
you
that
don't talk
call
about
because
all the
somebody else has to use the phone. So
right.
you maximize them 15 minutes that I may have not talked to you for 30 to 45 days.
Right.
Email is my friend. I'm not old, but I ain't no spring chicken either. The first time my husband had to leave me for a year, we had snail mail. Email wasn't a thing yet. So,
Child.
and he was in Korea. Imagine that phone bill. We
Imagine
were
that
writing letters.
letter getting to him.
Yeah.
I was like, this all sounds, just like so many little things, but they are things, that can actually be really big things to someone else, but that we just kind of take for granted or don't even realize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of some of our friends and family that aren't military and has never been military affiliated, when being retired, he went right back to work for the Army doing the same thing that he was doing on active duty. And it kept him going all of the time. And aren't you tired of that? Do you ever wonder where he is or what he's doing? Like, don't you miss him? Yeah, I miss him. That's a crazy question. I miss him. He miss me. That's why we're on this phone. That's why we send a text message. What you talking about? But when it's a lifestyle that you learn
Mm-hmm.
to live with. It's a lifestyle you learn to live with. And it's so when I see people arguing or upset because you ain't text me right back. Okay. Like sometimes I'm ministering to sisters, I'm talking to sisters, and they're like, my husband, I text him and he didn't text me back for like 3 hours. What was he doing? Or I've been gone and he didn't reach out to me. That
You
don't make you mad. I'm like, I mean,
I done went months without
on
talking
his
to my
side.
husband, girl.
It's like, you know, and it's that thing. That's why it's so important to build healthy marriage. Like, because understanding how our communication works, when you can, when you can't, and knowing that you're not ignoring me because you just want to ignore me. Like you're actually don't have the ability to do it. Amen. Or you've been worked. My husband's downrange, and there's no such thing as 8 hour shift and then go to sleep, or 10 hour shift and go to sleep. They're 24/7 down there. Sometimes that man may have been up 36 hours or more. Yeah,
right.
when he came back, he might have had the ability to call because the phones were free. But did he really have the ability to call me? To do what? To go to sleep while I'm on the phone? Then I'm gonna be mad. So
Right.
you learn how to build, and so that's why I believe that whether you're a military family or not, that other married couples will be able to draw some great nuggets from this book, because a lot of times there are rumors that being in the military is damaging to your marriage.
Right.
Doing anything can be damaging to your marriage. The mailman might struggle. The dog catch you. The school teacher. We know people that's got bad marriages. They ain't in the military. Your marriage being the best that it can be totally depends upon the two individuals operating in the marriage
Right.
and what everybody is willing to sacrifice.
Wow.
Agree.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that we did not capture that you want to make sure we talk about tonight?
So there are still spots open in the anthology for co-authors. So anybody that's watching this broadcast or will watch the replay or the podcast, and military families and that think that this may be a good project for them to be involved with, they can reach out to me on my social media. Every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do an information session via Zoom. And if they register for that, I'm happy to come on. And what I like to talk about in that session is what the project is all about and what co-authors have to look forward to when they partner with us. Not just writing your 1,500 word chapter, but there are options, there are levels. You have the bronze level, the silver level, and the gold level. And many of us as military spouses, we are entrepreneurs, and so we have in that silver level and that bronze level package was designed specifically for the entrepreneur or the ministry leader in mind because they give the most visibility. Um, and especially within that gold package. In that gold package, those co authors will not only have visibility through press releases, podcasts, live streams, but the biggest benefit there is they will be on two streaming TV shows. My show, uh, that's on the Zandra TV network called Pursue Purpose TV. And that first season of my show, all of those guests will be military spouses sharing their story and their journey. And it's broadcast on Amazon TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire, excuse me, Roku TV, Tony TV, uh, Binge TV, commercials running on Hulu. It's just and multiple networks through that Zandra TV platform. So if that's something that they're wanting that visibility for their brand. They're wanting that visibility for their whether their brand is for profit or nonprofit. That's the package that they definitely want to connect with. So we have one coming up. As a matter of fact, this coming Thursday, um, where Zandra will be there, as well as Fancy will be there to talk about how they're supporting this project and making sure that the co-authors are getting the most benefit for their money. Like, some people are saying, "Oh, Lord, Quita, I've been a co-author in an anthology." It's kind of like, shake it. Well, I understand that because after you meet your Amazon bestseller status, then what? Well, my goal as the visionary author of this project is to teach them how to be a brand. How do you take that book, your chapter from that book, and make money with it? How do you take it and be a blessing to the people that you feel like God has called you to reach? Because that content is their content. Their chapter is their chapter. I can't change it. If the rights to that chapter is theirs, but having individuals like Fancy and Zandra on board, it will teach them how to make money from the work that they put in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if
Well,
you,
thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying, Anya?
I was about to read her stuff, but you can go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead and read. You read better than me with this.
Dr. Laquita can be found at Laquita Monley. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. Laquita Monley.
Mon- Monley is www.laquitamonley.com or on Instagram at Laquita_Monley. Her name is spelled LAQUITA_MONLEY.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Laquita, for joining us this evening. And yes, I will be on the call on Thursday. And guys, just to I'm gonna drop this link also in the comments so that it'll be available for you all to click on it. So if you're looking for more information, you all can find out more there as well. And also, stay connected to Dr. Laquita. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me.
Bye.
All
All right.
righty. You can find me at www.ladyceo.com. My email address is arnya@ladyceo.com. You can find me on all platforms, LADICEO.
All right, and I'm still trying to drop that link, so that's why I haven't gotten to mine yet. But everything Swagger Magazine can be found as Swagger Magazine. Our website, of course, is swaggeronline.com, and we did have a malware problem last week. Actually, it's from since Thanksgiving. So now that that has been resolved, you should be directed directly to the website, unlike you had not been able to do before. So everything pertaining to me is Fancy Swagger, and right now we are working on our Winning Women of 2023 digital directory. So we have advertisements. Well, I call them advertisements, but they're basically listing your businesses within this digital directory, and the price of those is just $50. And I see I still have it on yours. But you all can find more information on the website at swaggeronline.com, as well as we have some ads running. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always message the page. So I think that's everything. Well, peace and blessings, y'all.